Hello friends, this is a video for December of the year 2024, and in this video we will talk about important aspects and transits in this month. New moon will be on the 1st of December in Sagittarius, but we will also have another new moon which will happen on the 30th of December in Capricorn. On the 15th is full moon in Gemini. Sun is until the 21st in Sagittarius, after that in Capricorn. Mercury is retrograde until the 16th. Venus is until the 8th in Capricorn, then in Aquarius. Mars is in Leo, and from the 6th is retrograde. Jupiter is now retrograde in Gemini. Saturn is now in Pisces. Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, which is important. Neptune is from the 8th direct in Pisces, which is also important, and Pluto is in Aquarius now and for many years ahead. In December we have two new moons, the first in Sagittarius at the beginning of the month, and we said the second in Capricorn. New moon in a particular sign symbolically creates a new pattern that develops and culminates until the next full moon in the same sign. So the pattern that is created at the new moon grows in the next 6 months, and after that is losing its power. The first new moon at the 9th degree of Sagittarius contains the opposition of Mars and Pluto, which means that this dangerous energy will accompany us for another half of a year. And I will say something more about this opposition later. However, there are also good aspects at this new moon, especially between big planets, between Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, which is very important now. And this is, I commented already on that, maybe you know it, but this is the symbol of great protection that we all have as a humanity. And during this new moon, Mercury and Jupiter are in interpersonal, or let's say mutual reception, as we say in astrology, and also which means in opposition, which is not very ideal. This predicts quarrels, conflicts, and some misunderstandings between the two parties, also childish behavior in relation to responsible things, childish behavior where childish behavior is not needed. And of course this is not strange when we know where do we live. On a personal level, this new moon brings certain confusion for Sagittarius people, because it will not be clear whether to use a rational or intuitional way of functioning in relationships with people and in some processes, and that will last for a half of a year. However, many are likely to be active and creative, or maybe many of Sagittarian people will open their heart for other people. Gemini will be less bothered with this opposition between Mercury and Jupiter, because Jupiter is in their sign. They are now the favorite sign of the universe, and Jupiter is waiting and ready to jump on them wherever they are. So Gemini people now really have the time to be excited and to start something new with new optimism. But of course they will also have their dilemmas, because Jupiter can enlarge everything, so problems also. The second new moon at the end of December is also at the 9th degree. This is the 9th degree of Capricorn. And many will notice here this number 9, which means the end of something, but also something new is already prepared. At the time of this new moon, there is an almost exact square of Jupiter and Saturn, which I will also describe a little bit later. And this means actually that this square will also follow us next half of the year. And at the time of this new moon, the opposition of Mars and Pluto is also active, and Mars is even retrograde, so it means very intense. And this explosive constellation also will accompany us next half of the year, 6 months. So for Capricorns, this new moon is significant because their ruler Saturn is now in square with Jupiter. This aspect can bring them certain obstacles that they might feel that something fatal is happening or something is preventing them from realizing that what they want. Something is stopping their plans. But from the point of view of astropsychology, we know that every tense aspect with Saturn is a challenge to accept our own shadow, speaking in Jungian terms. So means obstacles that we have within ourselves and which we do not want to accept. And we have a moral problem with that. This aspect will follow also other cardinal signs, not only Capricorns, for the next 6 months, means Crabs, these are these Cancer people, Libras and Aries, and especially those who were born in the first decade of those signs. So those who have planets between 0 and 10th degree. Instead of being dissatisfied, it is better for them to solve these so-called external problems through themselves in an internal way. Mercury is retrograde from the 26th of November, and it will be retrograde until the 16th of December. But only emerges from its retrograde shadow on January the 4th. Only then we are done with this. On the day when Mercury turned retrograde in November, it was agreed to stop the battle between, or to stop Israel's attack on Lebanon. And of course, it is because these attacks have no chance to pass through the defense belt. But that does not prevent Israeli people, Israeli government, whoever is doing this, government better to say, to continue bombing certain territories, mainly because of their weakness. The revenge is usually coming as the sign of somebody's weakness. So that's what is happening. The period of retrograde Mercury has its own challenges, but it marks a period that it's ideal to complete something that started before. We need to finish something with this retrograde Mercury. This especially works for Gemini and Virgo people who may encounter situations that they have already experienced, or maybe they will meet people that they have forgotten about and with whom they still have to do something, some work have to be done with them. Something is coming from the past, or it's just the time to finish with something that they prolonged too long. And that's how we got to Mars. We are at Mars now. Let's talk about Mars. We said that Mars will also be retrograde from December 7th in the sign of Leo, and that the question arises now, will there be some more stopping of the war, some ceasefires, or maybe wars will continue and be even stronger? If some war will stop, if there is going to be some ceasefire, it is like a test, and after the direct movement of Mars, so after February 24th, these fights can continue again, even if they stopped before. Another version would be, which is more likely, I guess, that certain fights will continue and be even more intense, because retrograde Mars is closer to the Earth now, closer than when it's direct, and this energy is too strong now to stop the war. We'll see. If the second thing happened, the second possibility, then the fighting would be the most intense until the February 24th, which is the mentioned date, and but we should be careful about those days, because sometimes we react exactly, sometimes not, so can be around that day. Until January the 7th, wars are somehow different. From that date onwards, when Mars moves in the sign of Crab, we can expect more Mars within the states themselves, which means some sort of civil wars or some riots maybe, and this is valid until the middle of April. But after April, some wars may return to where they were in November and December 2024. So even this is possible. You may remember that in the November video I mentioned that the transit of Mars from September 2024 to June 2025 is a special story. It is transiting through the sign of Crab and Leo, and it feels terribly bad in Crab. So Mars changes signs, changes direction, is in a bad position, and this is happening several times. And all these movements have a meaning, of course, and this process is not naive at all. You will remember that in the November video we talk about Mars having an opposition with Pluto, and that is very intense and explosive energy. Potentially can be very destructive. This opposition appeared around the American elections at the beginning of November. And it lasted all November also. And we saw in November hypersonic weapons that will completely change the way of warfare in the future, and probably the ideology of war. And we will see some changes of this kind already in 2025 and 26. Midway, the opposition of Mars and Pluto intensifies again from the end of December to January 6th, and then again at the end of April. So in the meantime, this opposition somehow is losing its strength, but is somewhere there, you know. It has its stronger and less strong phases. We also said that this opposition will monitor the no, I didn't want to say monitor. We said that this opposition will somehow symbolize, be the symbol of the elections in America. This opposition happened during the election, so election is influenced by this opposition. And we will see what will happen from January on, because the whole situation on Middle East will depend on America. And we would be naive to believe that it will stop just like that, because somebody has completely crazy plans to conquest somebody on Middle East. I'm not going to say all of those words that you know that are not now the best to use. You know, plans are crazy. Definitely plans are crazy, and we will see what America will do, or maybe what will happen with America, and after that maybe crisis on Middle East will stop, which is the most probable scenario. Changes in America will be such that they cannot be involved in that what is happening in Middle East. But we'll see. We know, because we have already talking also about that for many years, that we are coming to an end. Of course, closer to the end does not mean the problem is solved. So the turbulent year 2024 will soon turn into turbulent year 2025, and it is because it's not easy to stop this what is happening with us. We are at the end of one civilizational model, and a new civilizational model will be established. But unfortunately, all civilization is led by the degenerated psychopaths, and it is very, very hard to save the world from the total destruction and also to stop those psychopaths. At the same time, of course. For the most of the month, the sun is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius celebrate their birthdays. But the ruler of Sagittarius, the planet Jupiter, is in decline in the sign of Gemini. So maybe you will think that this lucky Sagittarius will not be that lucky, but I guess they will be. Just they will have to solve some small problems which they don't like to do, you know. They like to see the big picture of everything. When the sun is in Sagittarius, it judges in the second instance court, therefore at the highest instance. I said that, of course, metaphorically, but even literally it is so, though I have no time now to explain the symbolism of Sagittarius in details. So there are some trials now happening in the world. There are many trials, you would say. Yes, it's true, but one is especially important, actually two in one. Which I'm referring to, you would ask. Well, of course, there are many courts, but one is important, and this is that the International Court of Justice initiated a process against the Prime Minister and the Minister of Israel from the crimes against humanity. I don't know exact formulation, but you can find it on the internet. However, those who created this international court, which means Americans and their partners, or better to say tutors of America and their partners, they created this court. They did not create it for them to be judged. They're immune to the decisions of the court. That court was created to put on trial some Serbs, some Muslims, some Slavic people, and some people like that, who of course do not respect human rights and things like that. So the court was not created to judge themselves. And it will be very interesting to follow how far this shame can go now on. We will see. Many things will happen further even in United Nations. And it will be disgusting to watch that, what is happening in international law. Especially, I guess, now when the sun is in Sagittarius, new processes will appear. We announced that in December there will be Saturn in square with Jupiter. And this will lead us to experience some sort of Janusian or Janusian, I would say maybe in English, nature of everything we see. Some duality is present now, and certain ambivalence that appeared everywhere. And let us immediately add that this square of Saturn and Jupiter is also very good for those processes that we mentioned, because it warns that we are at the moment of the highest crisis. We as a humanity, we as a people who have some kind of international law, and then this is happening. Namely, this square is available through December, January, and even in February, but it is exact on the December 25th. And it appears somehow in public that they wanted to start so-called new pandemic at the 25th. It is unlikely that to happen because of the general tension in the world. In order for that, to start that plan, they would need the focus of the masses on that one problem. And that is very hard to do now because there are so many problems around that are so huge. But you will see in my video for the year 2025 that it's not excluded that they will try something. This square of Saturn and Jupiter is the first challenging aspect of those two planets after the conjunction they made that took place on December 20th of the year 2020 and happened at the 0 degree of Aquarius. We talk about this conjunction, which is one of the great conjunctions, so very important in astrology. And I will recommend you my video, Dead Kings and Pregnant Crones, that now in the last days I'm recommending this often. But what can I do? I mean, it's actual. So watch that video again to see what this means. This conjunction first I'm speaking about conjunction in 2020. It means that people, or let's say masses, are gaining importance, and we are really moving to some sort of a massive awakening, regardless of the fact that we, from the time to time, say that it's happening too slowly. It's maybe slowly, but it's happening. This conjunction symbolizes also new organization of society, new social and political structures, and even that current way of ruling the world will finish. Of course, everyone knows that even them, you know how, those who are very high, they also know this. So that's why they so much study mass psychology. in order to keep masses under the control as in previous centuries. We can talk for days about these significant aspects of Saturn and Jupiter, but for now let's concentrate a little bit on this square that appears in December. It can bring some sort of pessimism because things are not going according to experiences. Let's put it that way. But we can also find something positive in that. Because now the question will be whose expectations are not met. In fact, if somebody's expectations are not realistic, maybe that can be very good for us ordinary people. Let's put it that way. Although, of course, we will also be, as individuals, confronted with this energy in our own lives. It will appear through somewhere. You will wonder why I mentioned the Janus nature of everything and this duality. Well, because Saturn itself contains it, because Jupiter amplifies it, and because both planets are in dual signs, Gemini and Pisces. All this brings a certain disorientation as well as disappointments, because this square between Saturn and Jupiter we simply explain as the confrontation between reality that is not nice really and very big expectations. For those who do not know why I speak about Janusian or Janusian nature of things, that is coming from the name of the god Janus, or maybe that can be in English Janus, who is one of the manifestations of Saturn. He was the god of the gates, and he had at least two faces to see both those who are entering the gate and those who are leaving out. Of course, this constellation, this square of Jupiter and Saturn, represents also financial problems, problems in repaying debts or loans, unhealthy attitude towards money, and everything like that. And we know who has the biggest debts in this world. There the trouble will be the biggest. Therefore, let's expect even bigger financial crisis in some parts of the world from December. As always, I emphasize that Saturn represents our shadow. It is entirely possible that those shadow projections now will be more strong than before, even also on collective and also on the individual level. And that means that there will be mutual acquisitions, a lot of lies, and a lot of, let's say, maybe the word is backbiting in English, in the aim of self-defense. That's what they will do. We will maybe now personalize, but on the collective level it will be even stronger. And all this is sometimes necessarily to happen, of course, but when people watch this and think of this, it can say only this is really crazy planet where we live in. But what can we do? We are here, and maybe I will record a new video about this square between Saturn and Jupiter. I will see if I have time, I'll try to do it. Let's mention some other important aspects. For example, on the December the 4th and the 6th, and also on 24th and 27th, are squares with Saturn. And these days are very sensitive. These squares will be made by Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury, so these are also here. We can say that the month begins and ends with these squares with Saturn, and this also, of course, is the symbol of problem. And we said the problem can be overcome only through introspection, not by accusing others. Let's avoid those mentioned days as much as possible and not do any important things in those days. For me, it seems that the best day in December is the 19th of December. In some countries, Orthodox Christian countries, is the day of Saint Nicholas. And that day will appear the trine between Venus and Jupiter. This is a very nice air trine. And the day is fantastic for achieving success, for socializing, meeting people, even having big plans with ourselves or with others through some these partnerships with others. The day of the greatest passion is the December 7th, when Venus is in conjunction with Pluto. But it's interesting that this conjunction happened in the sign of Aquarius, which is air sign, and it has no passion, actually. So I guess that people will fight because of the ideas, or will be some tension because of different ideologies, or of the way of thinking. This can, of course, happen in the individual lives and as in the collective life also. And the full moon is in Gemini on December 15th. It is, of course, it's in square with Neptune. This is our December, squares with squares. And again, the meaning is an unrealistic relationship to reality. Something is very unrealistic here. Neptune is stationary at the 27th degree, all month in the same degree. It stays still, as we say. And it seems that there are troubles. Debts cannot be returned with this position of Neptune. There is no solution what to do. The thought is difficult to clarify with this Neptune under the influence of confusing circumstances, of course. There is no end to lies. Lies are growing like mushrooms. Some sort of deceptions of the masses is there. And so on and so on. It will be very hard to clarify situation in December, but maybe the situation will be better in the first months of the next year. 27th degree of Pisces in ancient astrology, but actually by ancient astrologers was considered to be the bright degree, which is fine, very good for us. And in Indian tradition, it can mean some conformism, pomposity, or this like enjoyment too much, and definitely that also it is in play in some parts of the world among some of us. Uranus is retrograde in Taurus, as we know, extremely intense. It is very devastating for nature, for biological life on Earth, for the economy and material values. Jupiter is also retrograde, but in Gemini until February, and we are witnessing that more and more YouTube channels are disappearing, but this is the price that we have to pay if we want to see the truth coming out. So you see, December is continuation of the intense events. We will not be bored, definitely. Let's only pray for people who are in the Middle East, is Palestine especially, and in Ukraine, because they are in a terrible position. And let's hope that it will be better. We are still very lucky because the confrontations are not happening everywhere, and I believe will not be. And I guess that's because Neptune is in a very strong position. But about that some other time. That's all for now. At the end, I would just want to say that if you wish, you can order personal consultations with me based on astropsychology, based on the method that I use. The name of it is the change of code, that's change of perception. This is the method that helps us to work with our conscious and subconscious. And also I offer consultations based on Feng Shui. If you like the video, like it, sign up to my channel, and thank you very much for that in advance. I wish everyone luck in December and the ability to distinguish the polarities in the confusing duality that appears to us, to find a way in this interweaving and to extract some wisdom from that. And see you soon.